Welcome to the Asset Management, instructor-led, training videos. In this video, we will talk about asset management, asset owner, user persona.
Okay, so we are impersonating Holly Stieskel with the Union Pacific. I'm picking the Union Pacific because they use a little more of our inventory pages in different ways than all the other railroads or steamship lines. That's one of the biggest challenges we have on the asset side is every one of our clients that from a asset owner perspective uses our inventory pages differently. So again, Union Pacific is probably the broadest, so that's why I'm kind of leaning with them. But just note, if I'm working with Norfolk Southern or CSX, they do operate differently within these pages. But for all intents and purposes, the calculation is the same. So we'll walk through that as well. So again, like all the other like motor carriers, like the shippers, all the top tabs are the same. They have, from a asset owner perspective, they do have access to business intelligence like the shippers. Theirs is actually much more reports. The rails rely on a lot more reports, and the railroads can ask us to build custom reports. Shippers can as well, but the shippers have to pay for them. The railroads, typically it's included in their contracts with us, so we build out a lot of custom reports for them, and they have full access within their business intelligence tool. Communication, exact same. Configuration, the exact same as a shipper, but the only difference within here is they have a contract and tier maintenance. Within the contract and tier maintenance, so when a customer goes in and books a reservation for certain railroads, it might even be all of them now at this point, they're required to, within the reservation creation screen, they're required to select a contract. So basically, every shipper that moves with Union Pacific, for the most part, has a contract tied to a beneficial owner. So for Celtic is the shipper, and they're moving product for Frontline Freight. So they have a certain contract number, and these contracts are all on the rail side. So whatever the shipper and their sales team do with the railroad, all those are negotiated. But at the end of the day, the railroads want to know what contracts are moving, or these reservations are being made for. So that's kind of, again, a way for them, the railroads, to come in here and actually manage and maintain these contracts. So if there's ever a change where right now we have a contract for Celtic from Los Angeles to Boston, if this were to change and they decided, hey, we don't want them to be able to move stuff from Los Angeles to Boston anymore, they can come in here, select this, and essentially edit it or in that contract. More likely, they come in here and they create brand new contracts. So as new customers or new agreements happen between the railroad and the shippers, the railroad would come in here and adjust the contracts or create new contracts depending on what was agreed upon. They also have the ability to come in here and basically do massive updates. So, for example, they could download or export this entire list for Union Pacific. They could then go into it basically goes into an Excel spreadsheet. They can go in there and modify it. And then instead of having to go into each individual one through this screen, they can just come back here and re-upload that spreadsheet. And that will adjust all those, basically a mass adjustment of those contracts, or in addition to with additional contracts. Help and policies, again, the same from an asset owner's perspective. Again, their policies are their policies and procedures are the exact same as the shipper. There's no difference between the two. So they have full visibility to what the shippers see. Again, these are their policies that we reinforce. So it's important that the asset owners have visibility to these policies, because ultimately that's what our billing is built on. And then again, they have access to the interline rail schedules. Not really used by these guys, but it's a good sanity check for them because at the end of the day, they're the railroads. They should already have this in their internal systems. All right, within their management tab, so they have inventories and activity. The activity screen is, we'll check on it real quick. It's pretty much the same as the shipper. The difference with the railroads is, again, they see everything that's moving on their lanes. So if a piece of equipment touches their line, they get visibility to that entire move. So they can go in C mode, they can go and see Celtic, they can go and see C.H. Robinson, whoever the shipper is on that container. And if it's touched Union Pacific, UP has full visibility to it. It's the same across all the railroads. If I log in as a CSX user and I go to the activity tab, they have full visibility into anything that has moved or touched their lines. I should take a quick look at it right now as I talk through it. So again, a little different for them is they have a little more of a selection process, right? So they can come in here and they can fine tune it down to any of the shippers they want to take a look at. They can also break it down to metro location that they want to look at as well. So we can do Portland. So basically this is looking at every piece of equipment that is within the Portland metro area. So, and that could be a destination or at origin. So if you look at, so origin, basically it's grabbing anything that has touched the Portland area at some point. So again, these are a lot of moves that it went to destination Portland, but again, the screens are exact same. They have the ability to view the activity. They can view the charges. They can contact us. Again, Rails do not use contact us. From our perspective, they typically email us, and they can comment on there. Again, they don't typically use that. And the same with the request. They have the ability in the request. Okay, the inventory screens. So this is basically where the railroads live on a daily basis. This is basically looking at every single one of their locations. So right now, this is showing everything. I'm going to filter it down to. So any location that Union Pacific is responsible for, or, and again, these situations here, CN is, we're going to see owner of a CN location. CN is actually not a partner of the rail. I'm trying to think of the wording we use for that. Basically, Union Pacific, basically, think of Union Pacific is the highest part of the umbrella, and then CN falls under them. CN doesn't own any of the EMP equipment, but they are part of the EMP program. So Union Pacific is allowed to view their locations. They're an agent. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. They're an agent of the Union Pacific. Union Pacific, however, cannot come in here and see CSX or NS locations. Those are full-blown partners with NS, with Union Pacific, but they are not authorized to see their locations. So there's typically in here are CN, UP, and then UPMX, which is the UP Mexico locations. So if you notice, they have no access to any other railroads. Strictly the railroads that they are of ownership of or have agents under. Again, like all their other screens, we do have they can move around columns. We highly recommend they don't when they're a AS owner, just because again there is math involved with how these columns are set up. We're okay with them adjusting columns over in this area, but as far as all the columns in blue here, we typically try to keep them away from adjusting any of these columns, just again because it will mess up with their math, and I'll walk through that in a second. What was I? So we also offer the ability for them to have an auto refresh on there. One of the bigger features we had prior to our current version of asset management was they automatically had a auto refresh on there. So these screens were constantly updating. So it's very real-time information. Again, the rails are doing a lot of their actions in real time. They need to know what's there right now. They don't need to think about when was the last time this data was refreshed. So we've added that feature back for them a few years back now. I think it's almost 8 years now. But yeah, the ability to turn that on and off. And again, that will just keep this data fresh throughout the day. Another note in here, so just to kind of dive in, we have a ramp and metro level. So if you're looking in this screen here, and it might be hard to see on this video, but there are some columns that are gray or light gray, or sorry, light gray or white. And then we have these columns or these rows in here that are red. Everything that is a red row is metro location. And we'll kind of walk through that, but those are all calculated at the metro level. So we're going to look at, I'm just going to find put down this information. So by selecting a ramp location, and notice down here is basically populating the detail information. So this is your summary view up top, and then your detail view down below. Each one of these columns, so it basically makes its way from total asset specific, generic hold, etc. down the line. You'll notice each one of those have a tab down here. So if I'm looking at for EMP, Chicago West, Global 4, my total assets. So when I look at total assets, that is every container there that Bloom tracks that is empty. We're only looking at empty containers. It doesn't matter if it's got holes in it. It doesn't matter if it smells bad or if it's a perfect container. This is all the containers we have at that location that are empty. Again, down here is the detailed information. So you can actually see, okay, these are the actual, for this count here, it's actually breaking it down for you. And look, I mean, we give you the all count, no chassis, in pool, bad order, hold for DV, hold for term, etc. down the line. Again, this will break it down. It's a great way for the railroads to take a look at their inventories and actually take a look at why, basically why, you know, a unit's not able to get pulled out, or why their inventories look so low, or their usable inventory looks so low, is because, again, there's a bunch of stuff in bad order. But again, another good way for them to kind of get that detailed information they need. Asset specific holds. So these are actual units that are sent to us with a hold code on them. Bad order, term, check, DB. Basically, we have received an event for a certain asset to tell the Bloom system to take it out of inventory. You do not want to distribute a reservation on a bad container, right? The worst thing we can do is give someone a reservation, they show up to a ramp, and everything there is in bad order. That's a waste of time, and it's a waste of money. So by the railroad sending us these events, we are removing it from inventory, not allowing our system to grant reservations against these containers. Then they have a generic hold. So for some locations, for some railroads, they might add a little bit of a buffer in there, whether, again, their yards aren't being, so typically the rails are supposed to be inspecting these units once a day. They're supposed to have someone going out there and doing a yard check. For some of these larger locations, it's unrealistic. It's a tough thing to have someone go out there and check 43 boxes when there's a million other things going on at that ramp. So the rails will come in here and they can add in holds that basically remove, it's a generic hold, so it's not asset specific, but it will remove inventory again from our system, not allowing our system to book equipment up to 10 containers. And I'll work the math for you as we make our way down. So they have the flexibility to do that. And again, this is action. They can come in here and they can actually edit, make it larger. They can delete it. They can do whatever they want with this. Union Pacific primarily can use it in situations where they're trying to hold back equipment for premium customers. So it's just another way for them to kind of make sure there's equipment at this location for customers and just kind of remove it out of our inventory. So now we're getting to usable inventory. So again, the way our system works is it's doing math from left to right. So it's looking at total assets minus asset specific hold minus the generic hold equals your usable inventory. So at that point, that usable inventory column typically should be containers, basically telling our system, telling the Bloom Asset Management System, you can grant up to 6, at this one is 6 usable inventories. You can grant up to 6 reservations. We have 6 available empty containers sitting at this location. Go ahead and book up to 6 reservations. And then we move to the next column, and it's reservations. How many active reservations are made at this location? So in this situation, they have 6 boxes that are available that people can come in there and make reservations on. 5 reservations have been made. So your plus minus, and the plus minus is basically, again, doing the math of usable inventory minus your reservations is your plus minus. We have, and you will see situations where we have more reservations than available equipment, so this will go negative. And that's kind of a way to, again, to identify or flag to our asset owners that, hey, you might have a problem here. You gave out more reservations than you have equipment. You're gonna have to look into that. The next thing we have is an override feature. It's another lever for our railroads to be able to manipulate our system into either showing inventory or removing inventory. Again, it's at a generic level. It's never asset specific, but they can at least put a number in there to show that they put a +5 override in there. It will add containers to our system to say, hey, go ahead and let's just say it'll add availability to our system to say, hey, come in, you can make more reservations. Or they can come in here and say, whoa, I got a problem at this location. I want to bring down the inventory and not allow the system to grant a certain amount of boxes. They can put in a negative override, thus removing everything that we have in our system. We're up to a certain number. It's just strictly another lever they typically can use. Not heavily utilized by the bigger railroads. It is utilized quite a bit by the steamship lines. And the reason for that is a lot of our steamship line customers do not have accurate inventory. They have to use the override to generate or create inventory. Then again, we have the last column here, our distributable pool. So again, we're doing our math where total assets minus asset-specific holds minus generic holds is your usable inventory. Your usable inventory minus your reservations is essentially your plus minus. And then it takes a look, is there a number in here, is a plus or minus in here? Because it's a zero, it skips over and then will equal your distributable pool. So usable inventory minus reservations is your distributable pool. We can never have a negative distributable pool. So if there's ever a situation where we have way more reservations than usable inventory, this will just show zero. Next column we have, this is the last area where they can essentially tell our system to grant equipment or do not grant equipment. So this is what we call the block. Open here. This is the block feature. So basically we can, right now they have these pools blocked. So if a customer comes in and they look at Global 4 for EMP, because this pool is blocked, they're not gonna be allowed to make reservations. They can still go on standby lists, but the railroads have essentially stopped our system from allowing reservations at this location. So it looks like they have a block in place. So because there is, again, we're still making our way to the left. So allotment balance, we'll skip over that for now because it's going to be a much lengthier part of a conversation, more in-depth conversation we'll have. The remainder column in here is basically what would be displaying out to customers if the pool was released. So if I came in and released this location, the remainder column would basically display out to customers saying, yep, you have one reservation available. But again, because we have a blocked pool, this will currently, if I log in again as a shipper and I go to look for equipment at this location, it will be zero because again, they are blocking this location. But as I noted, you are still allowed to go in there and make requests, right? So requests again are putting yourself on a list for reservation as equipment becomes available. So down here, again, that's what here is today's premium request, today's program program substitution, premium request, advanced booking, kind of makes its way along all the different product types that the Union Pacific has, and then also kind of pushes out to future dates just to make sure they're aware that anything that might be queuing up for a later date. But like I said, down here, you also have the same the detailed information around those premium requests. So again, the way the system would work, because we have a bunch of requests, they're all for today. So these 9 requests that are currently sitting in there, if we were to release this pool right now, our system would automatically take a look to see, are there any pending requests? Regardless if there's one container available, I can fill now one box or one reservation. So basically what it's going to do is say, a pool is now released. What do you guys currently have in queue? And there are variables depending on, again, each rail. Right now, it looks like these are all the same. Yeah, so we have, the railroads have the ability to tier requests per customer if that's how they want to approach it. So if in this situation, everyone's got the same tier. So our system is basically going to look first at product, because these are premium products. These are the best requests that the railroads can offer. It will look at the premium request first. If there were no premium requests, it would move to advanced booking. If there were no advanced booking, it would then look at the standby, which is the lowest on the lowest on the tier. Because there are premium requests, our system's automatically again going to take a look at, okay, what is the tier? Is there any? Well, I'm looking at premium requests, but now I got to see if does anyone have a higher tier than anyone else, or lower. I think Union Pacific might be lower. So if anyone had like a 90 or an 80 in here at the tier level, they would automatically be the first one in line to get that reservation. Doesn't matter when it was created; it would automatically look for tier first. After it does the tier check, so again, in this situation, all the tiers are the same, so that gets excluded. It's going to look at essentially first come, first serve. Whoever created their request first, I believe this one, be the pickup date. they would essentially get that reservation immediately. And again, that's like our system would automatically fill it, send an email out to them saying, hey, reservation's been created with the reservation number. And then essentially the math would just trickle over again. All of a sudden this reservation column would jump up to 6. Our plus minus would go to 0. Our distributable would go to 0. And then there'd be nothing there until another empty container came in to be able to fill equipment. Just something to note from an action perspective. So while we're talking about this, so if we're down here right now, we have premium requests. The railroads have the ability to edit requests, cancel requests, but the big feature that they use a lot is this book now request. So Union Pacific does a lot of manual intervention when it comes to creating reservations. Due to contracts and requirements and stuff, they are very manual. So they always have a team in here going in and actually physically pushing requests through into reservations. They'll block a lot of their locations, and they'll have someone at Union Pacific will come in and say, okay, I'm going to take a look at the premium request today. I'm going to fill modes. And they can come in, highlight mode, and then select book now. And our system will ignore anything and everything. It doesn't matter if we could have 0 usable inventory, the pools could be blocked. The second they hit this overbook, and then there's another pop-up screen. I think I can, no, I don't want to do it right now because I'm hoping, I can't remember what comes next and I want to overbook. But basically their next screen will pop up, and they'll essentially have the ability to go in there and just force a reservation at this location. Regardless of what inventory shows and regardless if the pool is blocked. That's a huge feature that Union Pacific uses on a daily basis. If they want the system to automatically do everything, then all they would have to do is release the pool. Once any location that has released in there, our system will automatically take care of fulfillment for them. Again, Union Pacific has a lot of contract agreements with customers, so any locations that have low inventory, low capacity, but they have a lot of volume or a lot of requests coming in, that's typically when Union Pacific will jump in there and manually fill out reservations based on contract. So the actions we have up top for all the rails, they have the ability again to create generic holds like we talked about. They can create the overrides. They can come in and actually create requests on behalf of customers. They can come in and create an advanced booking, MCP. They can choose any of their request types. They can pick any of their shippers. Depending on the shipper they select, they'll have the name, a user that they can also put in there, and CC, and then again, the quantity of how many they're going to give out. And then they can tier it as well. Union Pacific doesn't typically do that a lot. NS has, NS and CSX both have products or I think it's like standby products. So NS has guarantee container. I can't remember what CSX is, but basically customers can't go into our application to request it, but the railroads have the ability to go in and create it again based on contract negotiation or whoever their customer is. It's again behind the scenes kind of a way they can grant equipment. So kind of, I'm going to try not to go crazy with the allotment. So the allotment ability within our system for the railroads, not heavily utilized by the railroads, but very much heavily utilized by the steamship lines. That might be a separate conversation or a separate training that we'll have on that. But the railroads have the ability to put in what they call interactive allotments. So again, it's another lever in our system to kind of make availability for customers using an allotment. So they can come in and say interactive allotment sequence 10, for example, and they can say for mode, and then they can do 5, and they can set it for today only, or they can have it as a recurring every week. I want 10 or 5 availability to show to just mode. So there's a way for them to kind of, if I log in as mode and I go to the availability tab and I look at Global 4, If there's an allotment in place, like right now, what we're doing right now, Mode will be able to see basically the distributable inventory at that location. If I log in as any other shipper and I go there, I won't see anything. So it's a way for them to kind of show equipment to shippers that of their choosing, essentially. Again, not heavily utilized by the railroads. They've used it for a little while for UPS at one point, then FedEx for another point. And again, it's not typically something they utilize on the rail side. It is very heavily utilized on the domestic reload side, and that's primarily because of the because we don't have accurate inventories for them. They have to kind of be a little more hands-on. I've never actually used this feature, so this is interesting. I'll have to get more information on that. My guess is, I'll have to get more information on this one. Never used that one before. I think that's newer added. And then again, they have the block and release remainder. So by clicking on this, they have the ability to release this pool, open it up, allow the system to allow the system to automatically fill requests, or block the location. All right, so next we're going to jump over to Metro. This will be a little quicker. So from a Metro perspective, the screens look a lot like the ramp view, but if you notice, again, Union Pacific right now is the only customer that utilizes this feature. So like we talked about on the shipper demo, certain locations when you go into the availability tab will show as, for example, if I go look for UMAX for Union Pacific out of Chicago Metro, I'm not going to see any of these locations. I'm going to see UP, Chicago Metro, essentially is what it will be listed as in the availability tab. And again, the way the reasoning behind this is when inventory gets very tight in these types of locations or in these metros, this is a way in which it will stop shippers from going into every single location and creating a request when all they really need is one reservation. By having the shipper come in and make a request, just one request at the metro level, Union Pacific can then say, okay, let me take a look at what my ramps are. I have 4 active ramps in Chicago. What does all their inventory look like? Okay, I have 3 in Fox Run, I have 5 in Global 2, and then I have 5 in Yard Center. So I'm good to provide a reservation to this customer at any of those 3 that I want to provide at. So it gives them a little more control of being able to grant reservations for high volume locations. Again, the math again is calculating from left to right up top again, but this one's doing it at the metro level. Something to be aware of, again, usable inventory will never be negative. This is something we've kind of had conversations with Union Pacific about quite a bit. So if there's a so typically we do our math. If we're at a ramp level, the calculation's 5 minus your 3 minus 5 typically would be a negative, right? Because it's not, because they're, because we do not use negatives in usable inventory. It's just something to note because the math is going to roll up top here. And then again, at the metro level, that's where we're going to start, where the calculations might get a little funky for the metro level calculations. All functionality is the same though. So the only thing that's going to be different down here is when I select Global 1, you're going to notice that there are no standbys, advanced bookings, nothing at a request level, because all the requests, again, are being made at the metro level. However, you will be able to see, I didn't pick one, reservations. You will be able to see reservations for that certain location, any kind of generic holds that might have been put in place at that location. They can do all that. They put overrides at the ramp location. And again, those will all roll up to the metro level. From a fulfillment perspective, where Overbook is working and where you want to see the request, you have to select the metro level line. So if you notice, I just clicked on the metro, I go to premium requests, you'll notice all these requests are in here. Union Pacific also has the ability to allow customers to use customer preference. So when a customer comes into when a shipper goes in and goes to the availability tab, selects UMAX, UP Chicago, Metro, and they go to make a request, they can ask Union Pacific, hey, ideally I would like my reservation to be for Fox Run. Not guaranteed, but they at least can kind of see where the customer ideally would like that reservation. So just something to note, a little different on the Metro level. But again, they can come in here and they can book now. They can cancel, they can edit, they can do everything they did on the ramp level. Again, this is just more at the Metro level view. I think that's about it. So just some things to note. So right, we walked over. So this is your supply. Blue is typically the supply. Yellow is the demand. We're talking about the columns here. And then green is typically strictly informational. So we do give, and this helps helps the rails, but also helps our client services team, customer support team. When we get calls saying customers are not, they can't allocate equipment out of a certain location, they can jump in here and I gotta go to an actual ramp. We can actually see the details for how many boxes allocated today empty. Oh, we're seeing a bunch came out of this location empty today. So we give them a little more detailed information that they can use, to help with real-time decision making or any kind of issues that might pop up.